Welcome to the Disneyland with Kids podcast, where we help you plan your vacation in 30 minutes or less. Planning to visit Disneyland in 2022? Our partners at Getaway Today can help you save. From free hotel nights to our special extra ticket discount, you can save money and get award-winning customer service. Visit disneylandwithkids.info/book to plan your vacation. In this episode of the Disneyland with Kids podcast, we are giving you all the need-to-know info and tips for visiting Disneyland during spring break. I am Julie from Mom Rewritten.
And I am Becca from This Crazy Adventure Called Life.
Becca, it is hard to believe, but this is the first spring break in 3 years that Disneyland will be open.
That's right. In fact, Disneyland closed just before I was supposed to head down for spring break in 2020. And then, of course, it remained closed until April 30th of 2021. So it's been a hot minute since we've had to talk about spring break at Disneyland.
Well, I know it's definitely a hot topic in the Disneyland with Kids Facebook group right now. We're seeing multiple posts each day talking about spring break. They're asking about crowd levels and weather and beyond. So now you go almost every year for spring break, and you're kind of an expert at navigating the parks during this time.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, some years I come home and I swear I will never visit during spring break again. But then the next year rolls around and I'm back once again. I mean, I think it's because we live in Idaho. So by our spring break at the end of March, we just are craving sunshine and warm weather. And usually Southern California can deliver that for us. But we'll touch on that in a bit.
Yeah. So now you mentioned your spring break's at the end of March. And that's probably the most popular question we're getting right now. When is spring break? And many people in our group are specifically asking when California has spring break. So Becca, when is spring break at Disneyland?
Yeah, people really hope to be able to narrow it down to a week and then just avoid that week. But spring break is actually more of a season for Disneyland. It kicks off mid-March, even though you will have a few areas that have a very early March spring break. But in general, mid-March, and it goes through all the way until the end of April. And you mentioned how everyone is asking about when Southern California's spring break is. That's honestly the wrong question to be asking, in my opinion. Most of my Southern California friends, excluding maybe you, they don't head to Disneyland for spring break. They want to travel as well. They want to go somewhere, and Disneyland's just local to them. That's something they do on the weekends. So the spring break crowds are usually more formed by people from the surrounding states or Northern California. And those weeks can vary a lot. Just like my spring break doesn't always match up with the district right next to us. It's the same for California and Nevada and Utah. You just have a bunch of different spring breaks. So people just need to know crowds will be heavier most of March and April. But because spring breaks do vary and it's kind of spread out, it won't be as packed as, say, Thanksgiving week or winter break when everyone in the country has the same 1 or 2 weeks off and is heading to Disneyland.
Yeah, I know my kids were in Southern California, and my kids, thank goodness, they're at 3 different schools. They all have the same spring break. It hasn't always been like that. Sometimes it's all over the map, but this year it's April 5th, I think, is their first day off, and then they don't go back until a couple days after Easter. But how busy is it really, Becca? So should people just skip going during spring break?
So the thing is, it's manageable if you use the tips that we are always giving people. I mean, we give these all the time, but rope drop, have a park strategy, utilize Disney Genie Plus if you are able to do that, visit for multiple days. We'll link some articles and previous podcast episodes in the show notes that give a lot of details on those strategies and stuff. But as long as you take our advice, you should have a pretty good time and be able to get a lot done.
Right, because having a plan is a big help. And like you said, rope dropping. I love rope dropping because you can really get so much done in those first couple of hours when everybody else wants to sleep in. And if you are someone who wants to spend spring break sleeping in, maybe you want to plan some down days, or maybe come to Disneyland, make your vacation plans during a less popular time of year. I know, Becca, you have a spring break guide out there. It's packed full of information. And one interesting thing that you point out is what days tend to be more crowded during this season.
Right. So we are all used to this advice that's generally true that Disneyland is busier on the weekends because the locals and the annual pass holders, I'm sorry, magic key holders, are visiting the parks, and it really ups the crowds on those days, and then also like Friday evening and stuff. But spring break actually tends to be the opposite. I have found almost every year, of course, this is pre reservations and all that, but almost every year I have found that during spring break season, the weekends tend to be less busy. Locals are going out of town, so they're not taking up space. Magic keys, the lower levels are blocked. And then spring break travelers, they tend to travel on Saturday, Sunday, do the parks Monday through Friday, travel back home Saturday, Sunday. So I have always found during spring break that Saturdays and Sundays tend to be less crazy. And that's going to be helped out even more this year because the Southern California spring ticket deal that they offer almost every year, this year they have blocked it so you can't use that on weekends either.
Yeah, that's right, because that's the ticket deal I bought to use for my family this spring break because we're going. And of course, we're going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'm sure that you're probably totally accurate on this. I think that if you're coming and you don't qualify for that SoCal ticket deal, that going on a Saturday and Sunday, you may be better off with crowds. I think locals who normally buy that ticket each year, they're not going to be coming to the parks on the weekends. They're going to be coming during the weekdays when they can use that SoCal pass. And of course, our partners at Getaway Today, they still have that ticket deal, as well as other ones. You know, you've got the 5th day free and other ticket deals. They're great for spring break. You can buy those now. We will link that in our show notes. And if people are heading to Disneyland during spring break, Becca, tell us, when should they be booking their tickets and hotel?
Now. They need to be booking them now. In fact, in years past, I've been able to find great deals for Disneyland hotels like a month before spring break. This year, I booked our spring break. Now it's mid to late March, depending on what you consider mid and late. And when I went to book our hotels in January, the options were actually a lot more limited than in years past. We weren't able to book the Courtyard, which is my absolute favorite hotel in the area, and had to choose a different hotel, which we're excited about, but it's not our tried and true favorite. And now that Disneyland has, as of this moment, lifted the indoor mask mandate for fully vaccinated guests, we know that we have a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm willing to book my trip now because maybe they didn't want to wear masks or they have kids that aren't comfortable in masks, various reasons. And so there's a lot of people that are like, oh, now I can go for spring break. So do not hold off on purchasing. If you don't have the money right now up front, Getaway Today has a layaway plan so you can lock in your hotel and your tickets, but just make sure you pay off the tickets early enough to make reservations for your park days for your trip.
Yeah, the reservation system is in place for the first time over spring break. So it's going to be really interesting to see how early those fill up and if it affects the crowd levels at all.
Definitely. I don't think it will lower crowds too much. To be honest, I don't think that they're operating at a much lower capacity than they previously were anymore before the shutdown. But I definitely think that we will see the reservations fill up a week or two before each date. So like, March 15th might fill up by March 1st. And as we get later in spring break season, I think that will be even more true because people will start to see that these dates are filling up and they'll get their reservations. So definitely do not hold off on that. Get the tickets as soon as you can. Of course, we have a special discount through Getaway Today. Buy those tickets, get your reservations, even if you have to do that first and then book your hotel after. We want to make sure you're able to get in the parks if you want to.
Becca, you also mentioned that you like to head down south because you're ready for some warmth and sunshine. Now, I'm a Southern California native, So I think your definition and my definition of warm might be a little different. So I'm going to let you describe the weather as someone coming from Idaho, and then I will weigh in.
Okay, fair enough, Julie. So, to be fair, I do tell people that the weather over spring break is unpredictable. I've had some cool rainy days, just like winter in California. Like I just went at the beginning of February, it was over 90 degrees. So, it can vary, but in general, I tend to find that over spring break it's usually 70 to 80 degrees for the high, fairly sunny. You do get a few cool and rainy days, sometimes warmer, sometimes cooler. But I will say that even though it can get pretty hot during the day between the sun, the temperatures, and the pavement, I almost always find that we need hoodies at night, and my kids at least need pants. Once the sun goes down, it cools off pretty quick.
Yeah, seriously, Southern California spring weather can be really fickle. It might be raining or it might be hot and sunny, and we get this question all the time in the group, and I just pretty much tell everybody the same thing. Just check the weather forecast ahead of your trip, like seriously, just a couple days ahead, because it can change. And then you're just really going to get the best idea on what to pack. Layers are always a good bet. You're going to be probably wearing a t-shirt and then a sweatshirt over the top, but you might want to take off the sweatshirt in the afternoon. And you're right. When the sun goes down, or even in the shade, it can get really chilly. So even though there's no snow on the ground, there might be snow out in the mountains, and that does put a chill in the air. So
Yeah.
just check the weather. Check the weather ahead. You don't want to be bringing rain boots if it's not going to be raining. And you don't want to be bringing a bunch of shorts if it's really going to be 45 degrees. So
Yes.
just check the forecast. And like I said, layers. Layers are going to be your friend. So, Becca, if you could give one tip to anybody that's planning their spring break with kids, what would that be?
Ooh, it's hard to narrow it down. But if your kids are young, okay, I'm giving two because it just depends on your style. Either plan on doing rope drop and staying until around dinner and then heading back to the hotel for a good night's rest. We've done that several times, especially when our twins were a little younger, like past the nap stage, but not old enough to stay up late. Or the other option is rope drop. Take that midday break for swimming, naps, just relaxing, and then head back around dinner and enjoy the cooler weather and lower evening crowds. So basically, if you have kids, don't try to do rope drop to park close every single day, unless you have kids that are willing to nap in a stroller. Otherwise, you're going to be really sorry. But on that note, Julie, I am trying out something new this time. I'm pretty excited. My tween son, he is older. He can go a lot longer. He can handle those late nights as well as being up early at least one time. So my husband and I are actually going to have one day where we bring the twins back around dinner. And then we've hired a nanny through Nannyland to come stay with the twins for an evening. And then we're going to take my oldest son back to the park and run around and do rides and enjoy the late night, stay until the park closes type thing with him. That way the twins can get to bed at a decent hour and we can rope drop again the next day. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, he's going to love that too. And I'm just really excited to hear your report, after you come back and you can report back to us on using Nannyland. I know that our listeners are excited to hear that review. And if any of them want to try it out, they can go to disneylandwithkids.info/nanny, sign up with our crown code. It's Disney Kids, and you can get yourself a discount.
Yes, I am super excited that they are offering that to our listeners and our group members. And I can also tell you that so far it has been an amazing experience. Like, we are already chatting back and forth with our nanny through this app that they use. They set up a private chat between you. And my twins are super excited to get to spend some time with her, partially because her name is Jessica, which, as many of you know, we have a co-host named Jessica, and they love our co-host and co-founder Jessica. So they're just really excited that their nanny has the same name. But it's been a lot of fun to kind of get to know her and her personality, and for her to get to know them. So I'm really excited about it.
I personally am a fan of the midday break, or should I say, my husband is the biggest fan of the midday break, to be able to go back to the pool, take a nap, relax, maybe change your clothes. And we really utilize it, especially when staying on site. But I want to know if you also use this when you stay off site.
Oh, Julie, I do. I mean, I've used it at times when we're staying as far as Buena Park. Not my favorite then because, you have to go to the car and drive and all that, but I've still used it then. But I also have really used it when staying within walking distance, like at the Courtyard or Howard Johnson, or when I stay near the Toy Story lot and I can just hop on a Toy Story shuttle. They're continuously running, so there's usually not a wait, and I can go there and take advantage of our hotel, cool down during the hot time of the day, or use the pool and all that. And this time we're staying at the Cambria for spring break, and like the Courtyard, it has a full water park. So we are definitely going to be taking some midday breaks so we can go back and utilize that.
Yeah, we're staying at the Radisson Blu. They had a really great discount through Getaway Today, and I encourage anybody to go and check that out. They still have availability during spring break. And for anybody that's traveling more than a couple of days, just having a down day is a really great thing to plan into your trip.
Yes. And a down day doesn't have to mean just staying at your hotel. I think people hear that and like, I know for me, being stuck in a hotel with three rambunctious children is a nightmare. Like in a hotel room, like they drive me nuts. It's getting better now that they're older, but when they were little, it was just like the worst thing to be stuck in that hotel room with them. And so it doesn't mean you have to be stuck in the hotel room. Sometimes our days off, we are spending time at the local beaches, or we're heading down to your area, Julie, and doing some of the offerings down there, or even strolling downtown Disney, going to Splitsville, all those types of things. And I know you have a great guide on some things to do over spring break, and I will link it in the show notes, but I want you to tell me 3 things that you would suggest to our listeners.
Okay. So, yes, San Diego has a great number of things to do with kids. There's just so many other places too to explore in Southern California that you might not have thought about. And I usually try to plan a few fun activities for my kids to do when they're on break, even if it's just a day trip for us. And it's challenging because I have kids in a wide range of ages. My youngest will turn 6 over spring break, and my oldest is 18. So finding something that they all like to do is a challenge, and thankfully Disneyland still fits that bill. But
Yeah.
we did Pirate Dinner Adventure, and that's always been a big hit with my kids. We've done that a few times, and that's in Buena Park near Knott's Berry Farm. And then if you're down in San Diego, Balboa Park. It's
Yes.
fantastic. There's just so much you can do down there. There's wonderful museums, outdoor gardens, and hiking trails. It's really an excellent choice, especially if you're on a budget, because there's a lot of free things you can do down there. And then also in San Diego, the USS Midway Museum, that's on the harbor. And that's really good for older kids, especially if they're interested in military history and just being down by the water along the ocean there. You can see the Coronado Bridge. Seaport Village is really close. You're down by Petco Park, which is the baseball stadium. So if you're, available, there's baseball starting back up, and that might be a good choice too. So how about you, Becca?
So we like to do the beach and, of course, some of the things that you mentioned. But this time we are taking our kids on a whale and dolphin watching tour, and I'm really excited for it. My husband and I did one in June, and it was amazing. And then we did like a really short one. It was supposed to be a snorkeling thing, but the winds were too bad and stuff in Hawaii. And so we saw some sea turtles and a couple of dolphins, but nothing like you see in Southern California during spring break. So I'm really excited to take my kids on it. And some of the things you mentioned, plus this, like, we just bought our tickets through Getaway Today. They had a discounted offer on other things to do in the area. And I love that. I love that we can just add that onto our package and get a bit of a discount on things besides Disneyland as well.
Yeah, that's right. The Pirate Dinner Adventure and the USS Midway Museum. Those are both things that you can get on Getaway Today. So I just love that they offer those other area attractions besides the theme parks. Okay, Becca, I know this part of spring break may not be on your must do list, but several of our group members are discussing it already. So let's talk about Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival.
Yes, I am not a foodie, but my husband is, so I can still appreciate this festival. And even if my husband wasn't, I'd still appreciate it. The festival is, just like the name implies, it's a food and wine festival that celebrates California culture and food from citrus flavors to local breweries and beyond. There's also demonstrations and entertainment offerings during the festival, and it takes place all of spring break season. Basically, it kicks off March 4th this year and it goes through April 26th. So it's a great option for our foodies, and it's also a great way to just feed the family during your trip.
Yeah, that's right. And this festival's included with the cost of your park admission. You don't have to pay anything extra to experience it. Now, of course, you do have to pay for the food if you want to participate in that. But the entertainment is included. There's, some live shows. You can watch those. There are some demonstrations. Those have an extra charge, but anybody else can just come and enjoy the entertainment. You can choose to purchase food. And like the other food festivals, Disney sells a sip and savor pass, and that will allow you to sample the food and the non-alcoholic beverages from different booths at a set price.
Right. You get a card and it has little tabs attached, and you can redeem each tab for an item. Like you mentioned, you cannot use them on alcoholic beverages. Those will have to be purchased, on your card or with cash or whatever. But everything else it can be used on that's included in the Food and Wine Festival. And the important thing, though, with these sip and savor passes is to make sure you do not rip the tabs off until the cast member at the register tells you to. Keep them attached.
Yeah, don't hand him over to your little kid because he's going to hand him back with all the tabs snapped off.
Yeah.
Okay, Becca, so let's talk about rides during spring break season. We know that January and February, many of the rides went down for annual maintenance, but can we expect to see more of the same during spring break?
So generally, we see most rides open over spring break. But getting a little more specific about 2022 and my spring break, which again is mid to late March, I noticed there were a few major rides that will be down. One of my favorites and a classic, Pirates of the Caribbean, is one of them. We have like the sailing ship Columbia still down. I'm guessing that is to prepare it for Fantasmic returning. We have Grizzly River Run will not be back up by my spring break. If your spring break's later, it may be back up for you. So there's few things that normally might be up if you've gone other spring breaks that may be down this time. So I do put out a monthly guide up towards right before each month. I have it updated for the year. And I include all of the ride closures that are listed. I include the, park schedule, all of that good stuff. So definitely make sure to check that out. And that way, you know what's going to be closed and you're not like hyping your child up for a ride that they're not even going to get a chance to go on.
Yeah, I had not even checked the ride schedule, so that's good to know. I don't want to get anybody too excited about going on something before we leave and then say, sorry, it's not open. Okay,
Yeah.
But we do know that we're going to be seeing Mickey's Toontown close just before spring break starts kicking off. So you need to make your kids aware of that, and parents should be aware that all of Mickey's Toontown is not going to be open.
That's correct. And I don't even know if they're listing the rides as closures I don't remember seeing them on the website when I looked for our spring break because of the fact that just the whole Toontown's closed. So they may not list those separately. So just be aware of that. It's definitely a little bit different spring break than we're used to. There's a couple other things that are up in the air that we don't know when they're coming back. And some people with a later spring break may see them. We have World of Color, Fantasmic, and even the Main Street Electrical Parade that's returning. They've all been noted as spring 2022, which in Disney speak, that could be anything from March 1st up until June 21st when summer is officially kicking off. So we don't think we'll see those by spring break, but some of the guests with the later spring break may have a happy surprise. In true Disneyland with Kids podcast fashion, of course, we recorded this just a few days ago to go live today. And of course, yesterday, the day before this podcast goes live, we got dates for the return of those nighttime spectaculars. So I am inserting this little audio clip here to let you guys know that World of Color, Disneyland Forever Fireworks, and the Main Street Electrical Parade will debut on April 22nd. So just like I mentioned, those of you going that last big week of spring break season may be able to catch those. We have also learned that Fantasmic will return to the Disneyland Resort on May 28th. So in time for summer vacations. So those dates are now released. And remember, you can always get the most up-to-date info in the Disneyland with Kids Facebook group. Back to our original recording.
Always nice to have more things open and maybe shift those crowds a little bit. So I think we're almost out of time, but if you're wanting to ask specific questions about spring break, you can head to the Disneyland with Kids Facebook group. In there, the 4 co-hosts of the podcast and thousands of our Disneyland friends are happy to help answer your questions. And in fact, I think we almost always have people comment within a few minutes of a question being posted. And it's really just a great community.
It definitely is. We love our Disneyland friends in there.
Becca, I think we should end with our traditional would you rather. So, Becca, would you rather go to Disneyland over spring break or over summer break?
Can I just choose both? No. Yes, I mean, that's the dream, right? So if I had to choose, I think I'd choose spring break simply because the summer is just a little too warm for me a lot of times. And the June gloom there, it makes it very humid and it feels sticky. It's not as bad as Florida or anything, but it's still not very comfortable for this gal that's from dry weather in Idaho. And I love almost everything is usually open. The only thing is like you get things that come back in the summer, like we're gonna have the Disneyland Forever fireworks and all that. I would love to see those, but I think spring break wins out because the cooler temperatures and all of that stuff. What about you, Julie?
I think I might go summer. I mean, fall's usually my most popular time to go, but summer, it's got to be pretty darn warm to get me in the pool, and it is not happening over spring break. That water, no, it's too windy and cool as soon as you get out of the water. So I want to be able to enjoy my entire vacation. So I think I would prefer summer. Plus, I mean, people always think that summer break is busier, but honestly, in my experience going during the summer, I've found that it's not quite as crowded as spring break. What do you think?
I agree because you get, especially after the lower Magic Keys get blocked out, you have this really nice period where there's like not any locals coming in really, and it's pretty nice. It's just whether you have that heat or not. So sometimes, it's okay, and sometimes it's 100 degrees and not fun. So I think either one's great. It's always a good time to go to Disneyland. Let's just be honest.
That's very accurate. Okay, you have been listening to Becca and Julie discuss spring break at Disneyland. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, and we would love for you to leave us a review. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you real soon.